you're living more. That's why people call the deep, advanced lucid dream practice living lucidly, because you're really integrating that conscious awareness into both your dreams and your waking life. And in that way, you have more time, you have more energy, you have more space to do the things you want to do, whether that's being this heightened, empowered human being and solving problems and taking action and making business plans and having the time to do that in your dream space and integrating that into your waking life. Or whether you're just using it for fun. Like you might be someone who's super busy and you spend your whole life in an office working a 9-to-5 job, and you might just want to fly over a city at night or take yourself to a beach and relax. You might not be someone who has the money to do the things you want to do. So it's like, well, do what you want in that space. Like if you want to use it to go on a shopping spree and wear all these fancy clothes and drive a fast car, then you can do that. And if you want to use it for these empowerment tools, like you can do that too. You can honestly just do whatever you want.
Is this a dream?
It really makes you wonder, where do they come from? Where is this space?
Being lucid in itself is a superpower to me. It's just magic.
So I just kind of think, I want to fly at the fastest of fast possible.
The dream will automatically respond to us. It's almost like a kind of telepathy.
You could receive guidance and wisdom from these other dimensions.
This is something that's been used for thousands and thousands of years.
What makes dreaming so fascinating is that we don't control it. It's autonomous.
I think someday science will figure this out.
You can explore consciousness for yourself. You don't have to believe anything anyone ever says about it.
The main thing was just this feeling of like complete bliss.
And I just felt so full.
I think it is one of the missing puzzle pieces.
Hello out there. Welcome to Is This a Dream, a lucid dreaming podcast, episode 5. I am your host, Adam Cotton. A little housekeeping up front. You can find the show notes for this episode and others at isthisadreampodcast.com. And you can also follow us at facebook.com/isthisadreampodcast and at isthisadream_ on Instagram. So here's the deal. I'm going to let you in on my plan for the maiden voyage of this podcast. I'm putting out around 7 episodes for this first run, and then probably letting it float for a bit at that point. It takes a pretty hefty amount of time and effort to produce each of these, and as of now, I am a one-man team doing this for the love of it, aka there are no sponsors. You can do the math there. Maybe someday, if it strikes a chord with enough folks, I can make it my full-time job and keep it going. I'm game for that. But in the meantime, let me know if you are enjoying the podcast and want to hear more. There's a contact link on the website, isthisadreampodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you. There's also a button there to donate via PayPal if the spirit moves you. Or another way you can help out is by leaving a review on whatever app you're listening with, which will help other like-minded people to find it. Or just listen and enjoy. That's totally fine too. Footnote for context, this was recorded pre-pandemic. In this episode, I am talking with Lana Sackwild. Lana is a transpersonal lucid dreaming and lucid living coach. She was born in London, grew up in Tokyo, and is currently based in the Boulder, Colorado area. Lana is a highly skilled natural lucid dreamer who, as a young child, discovered she could manage her nightmares once she realized she was dreaming. You'll hear more about that in our conversation. While growing up, Lana struggled with a debilitating depression. After being put on a heavy regimen of pharmaceutical drugs, she eventually found her way out by addressing and resolving the root causes of her illness through transpersonal psychology and lucid dreaming. You can find out more about Lana and her coaching services at lanasackwild.com, on Instagram at Lana Sackwild, and at facebook.com/getlucidwithlana. We cover a lot of ground in this conversation. Some of the topics we discuss are using lucid dreaming to help with learning foreign languages, grieving, yoga, dieting, physical healing, wish fulfillment, conflict resolution, and overcoming phobias. Also, shape-shifting into animals, other people, or genders, simulating psychedelic experiences in the dream space, dream journaling, nighttime routines, wake back to bed technique, and re-entering dreams. I think you'll find Lana's enthusiasm and positivity contagious. I edited the conversation in some places for time. All right, here we go. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. I'm super excited.
So I have to ask, having a podcast that has a built-in reality check to its title, is this a dream? And can you please explain your answer?
Well, let's do our reality check. So do you have any that you're using at the moment?
My first go-to is I always look at my hands for a few seconds, and if they stay consistent, then usually that's a sign that it's not a dream.
Looks like we're good to go. Yeah, I use my hands. I also use the nose breathing technique,
where you try and breathe through your fingers and see if any air comes out.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're in normal waking reality, which is could also be a dream, but that's a little bit of a deeper conversation.
Yeah, that needs a whole other podcast, I think.
Yeah, I think so. How and when did you first become interested in lucid dreaming, and about how long after that did it take you to start having lucid dreams?
As far as I can recall, the first lucid dreams I started having were when I was 4 years old. I got into that through having quite a lot of nightmares as a kid. Just, your regular monsters or weird kind of Disney villain characters, that kind of stuff. And I watched a lot of TV shows. I'm actually from the UK. I'm British. I grew up in London, and we had a show called CITV. And that was kind of a cartoon show or, kids' TV channel. And they had this big yellow button as a logo saying CITV on it. And basically within one of my nightmares, I kind of thought, hey, this wouldn't be as scary if everything was a cartoon. And I kind of just saw the CITV button in my dream, and I hit the button, and everything just suddenly turned into like cartoon or almost that kind of 3D animation style stuff. And obviously I thought that was amazing. And that's how I really got started. I started just recognizing that whenever I was scared in a dream, I had the power to do that and kind of mess with the physics of my dreamscape.
Wow.
Obviously, at that time, I had no idea that that was lucid dreaming or what it was. But I had that technique within me that if I started feeling scared, that was my way of, regaining control. And I just always used that. I kept using it for different things throughout my childhood, whether it was things like I really struggled to learn to ride a bike. And so I'd be like, oh, well, in my dream tonight, I'll just get some extra bike practice in. And as we now know, things like sports enhancements are really common for lucid dreaming. A lot of people who do sports practice using lucid dreaming, and the results show it does make you get better in your waking life.
Wow. So you actually did this. You were using your lucid dreams as a kid to learn how to get better at riding a bike.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about that, what that was like and how you figured that out?
Yeah, it's a really strange thing because I think it's all really down to your mental capability and your belief systems. I found, as a young child, I almost just fell into that lucid dream space. I guess I would class myself as one of those people who's a more natural lucid dreamer. I never had to begin practicing how to do it or inducing lucid dreams. It was just something that came into my life. And I just started utilizing that space. So it just seemed like the normal thing to do for me where I could go into this world that was my own. I could make any kind of environment that I wanted. So, I would recreate my childhood park where I used to practice riding a bike, get my bike, clear the way for everything, and feel really safe practicing there because I knew it was a dream. I wouldn't really be hurt if I fell off my bike, whereas for a kid learning to ride a bike when you're really little and you're in the park and everyone's watching you and you might get hurt, that's a really scary thing to do. So for me, I think I really related the lucid dream space to overcoming fears and empowering myself, and as like a training space almost.
How old were you when you started doing the bike level stuff?
I was probably about 6 or 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so interesting to me because I've seen statistically they say that kids and young people have more spontaneous lucid dreams. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? You think it's like less preconceived notions? And I'm also curious, like as a kid, did you talk to people about this? Did you think this must be normal for everybody? Like this is just what you do in your dreams. It makes total sense.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Until I was 7, I was an only child, so I did a lot of creative play and I spent a lot of time playing on my own. Since I used them for nightmares, it just occurred to me like, oh, I can change the dream or I can change different sceneries and environments if I want to. That just appeared as a normal thing once I worked out I could do that. I don't think I really spoke to anyone about it that much, but I definitely kept dream journals of my lucid dreams from when I was a little kid.
What was the point where you did realize, oh, not everybody does this, and how did that maybe affect the way you thought about it from there on out?
Yeah, I think that started happening probably in high school. I was, by this point, I had loads of dream journals, and as we now know, that the more you journal your dreams, the more vivid they become, the easier they are to remember. And I used to tell all my high school friends about my dreams, and they would ask me about them because they were so long and descriptive and really, quite funny in the way that I represented people's characters in the dreams or things they would do. It was one of those things that was really actually a social connection path for me, because if I had a dream about someone, I would tell them, and that kind of built a connection between us. And, we also have dreams where they include characters who aren't necessarily like the closest of friends with us. They're just kind of background characters, but that allowed me to also, build relationships with those people. And I think people kind of like being in other people's dreams. There's something quite nice about that. Like, oh, you had a dream about me. What was I doing? It's kind of an interesting look into the person's character. And that's when I really realized, because I would start talking about those dreams where I would get lucid and be in the school and maybe do different things. And my friends would ask me like, well, how did you know you were in a dream? And I would just say, the casual ways that I would know, like, oh, well, I was in the school hallway and I noticed that the notice boards had different pictures on them from what they usually have, or something just small like that. And then people would tell me like, what do you mean? Because I started to realize that other people didn't notice those kinds of things.
Interesting. So at this point, when you're in high school, how often would you have lucid dreams? Would it be a nightly thing? Would it be whenever you feel like it? Would it be almost you couldn't help it on any given night?
Yeah, again, it was a really spontaneous thing. At this point in time, I still didn't really know much about what lucid dreaming was. It was just something that would happen to me spontaneously. And I guess like partially induced, I did still use it for if I wanted to, practice in that space or do something. I used it to practice for tests, different school-related things. So I guess I would try and induce it by like thinking about it before I went to bed, just in a really simple way, like, oh, in my dream tonight, I want to practice blah, blah, blah. I want to practice for my language test or whatever it was. Time-wise, I would say maybe like once a month or once every couple of weeks.
So let's say you have a language final the next day and you're like sitting there studying. Would you just get to a point where you're like, screw this, I'll just finish it in my dreams and do it that way?
So from 18, I went to live in Japan, and I went there for the first time and I realized this is a totally different space to the one that I'm used to. And so I made it my mission to kind of learn Japanese so that I could just go there, speak to whoever I wanted, make friends, get a job, do all that kind of stuff. So in the day, I would write out a whole bunch of characters, like the kanji, the Chinese characters. And then when I was in the dream space, I would bring them up and try and rewrite them or remember them or use stuff like flashcards or whatever it was to kind of rehearse. I would also practice speaking Japanese with characters in my dream. And I just recognized that was something that was really beneficial, using that space for those things, because it helped me learn the language much quicker than anyone else I knew. Within the first year of living there, I joined a language school and they put me, in the top classes. I was with all the Chinese kids who were trying to learn the Japanese Chinese characters, and they were like, why is this white girl so good at this? And I really put that down to using that space to practice and rehearse things and using it to, the best of my abilities.
Wow. Now, I think something lucid dreamers, after they've been doing it a little while, start to figure out that not all dream figures are created equal. Some of them are sort of a little bit shallow as far as what they can do, and other ones seem to just have independent intelligence, and it's kind of hard to explain, like they know more things than you know. When you were learning Japanese and practicing it with the dream characters, did you encounter characters that knew it very well, like as good as one of your teachers or just somebody on the street might, and they would like help you?
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing, because obviously when I was practicing, I wasn't totally fluent at Japanese, but I would be talking to these people on the street who were just like spewing it out, supernatural, saying things that I wouldn't understand. That also kind of flowed from nightmares at that time as well. Like I used to get these recurrent nightmares where I would be in Japan trying to talk about something or interact with someone, and they would be like, oh, we can't understand what you're saying. Or they would be speaking Japanese and it would be like way too difficult for me to comprehend. And a lot of those enabled me to get lucid as well. That would be a kind of trigger. Yeah, it's strange how the brain can kind of do that and pick up these things that seem beyond our own capabilities. Now I'm studying Korean, and so a lot of these characters or entities who I come into contact with will be using Korean at a level that I can't even comprehend. And so that is a curious thing for me, is how do these characters know so much information? Or, when you have an interaction with a character and it seems like they know more than you do.
It seems like there's so much we don't understand about consciousness. How do you think those kinds of things are possible?
Yeah, I think the things that our brain does is just beyond what we can comprehend at all. The fact that we can lucid dream and we can create these hollow spaces, I think that's one of the most amazing things for beginners who start to lucid dream is, telling them to keep calm, otherwise they're going to wake up. Because when you get into a lucid dream and everything looks exactly like it does in reality, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to know, like, wow, supposedly I'm creating all of this. This is all in my imagination. Like, how am I doing it so well? How is this possible? But at the same time, it is. So I think, again, that is really linked into our belief systems, how much we believe we are capable of. If you go into a dream and think, well, I can try and practice something, but it might not really work out, then it's probably not going to. If you go into a dream space and think like, I'm going to practice this, whatever it is you're doing. Something I was practicing recently is yoga. I started doing yoga, and there's many yoga poses that are super difficult for me to do. but I go into the dream space and I can kind of split my consciousness up. So I can see me doing the yoga pose and I can see me from almost like a third person perspective, and I can assist myself and kind of watch what I'm doing wrong or watch the way that I want to hold the pose. And after doing that in my lucid dream, I went to the class a few days later and I was just much, much better at doing it. I think that's heavily linked to the capacity we have to believe in ourselves or believe in how strong the power of the mind is.
Yeah, belief and willpower are so important in lucid dreams. So you've started a coaching service, and you're now teaching people how to do this.
Yeah.
How did that start? We were talking about your time in high school with your friends that were really curious about what you were doing. Did you have any friends that were like, can you teach me how to do that? That sounds so cool. Like, how did that start for you? Because it seems like you're really passionate about teaching people this, and there's a real strong fuel in there. So where does that come from?
Yeah, all the time. It kind of comes up naturally in different situations, but a lot of the time with friends, we'll be talking about something. And as you do with friends, you end up talking about your problems or troubles that you're having in your life. And to me, a lot of the solutions I have or a lot of the things I come up with are suggestions for dream work. So one example is I was hanging out with a friend recently and she was telling me about this diet that she's trying out, which is, a no carb, like no bread kind of diet, and saying how it's really hard and the different things that she's doing. And I started telling her about how I have a secret to dieting, which is eating as much pizza as I want in my lucid dreams. And she was just like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, you don't have to give up bread. Like, you don't have to give up pizza if you eat in your dream space. Firstly, you're not actually eating food, so you can eat whatever you want, but you still have the sensations. You'll still have the sensations of feeling full. If you eat a lot in the dream, like upon awakening, you will feel full. It makes like the same connections in your mind of actually eating and consuming food. So things like that are just things that I have been doing or kind of looking into and experimenting in my lucid dream space. And then they just come to me naturally for ideas for other people. And it's firstly just a really fun thing to try if you've never tried, like eating an entire buffet in a dream, like a buffet of your dreams in your dreams. It's like an incredible sensory overload. And it's a really amazing experience.
Wow. I've heard a lot of stuff, but I haven't heard anybody feasting whatever they want. That's such a great idea.
Yeah.
And you probably wake up, you're like, yeah, I'm good. That was incredible. Because in real life, if you have an amazing feast, you're not thinking 2 hours later, God, I want to do that again. You're kind of good for a while on the feasting thing.
Yeah, I think, for me, obviously it's not like an entire diet. Like obviously you need to eat in the waking world. But for me, especially as a woman, if you're trying to do something like that, it's really hard. I think girls naturally have more cravings for like sweet things and chocolates and stuff. And instead of just cutting that out your life completely and going cold turkey, it's like, yeah, have a slice of pizza in your dream then, or have some chocolate cake. Like that is perfectly acceptable to do, and it might enable you to be stronger in your goals for weight loss or whatever it is you're working on.
So we could see you someday on Oprah with the lucid dream diet.
Yeah, I think I'm so surprised, other people don't know about these things. That's something that surprises me all the time. And just talking about them, I notice the amount of people who are like, wow, how do you do that? How do I start doing this? And that's really why I wanted to get into lucid dream coaching and combine transpersonal coaching and lucid dreaming together to make one wholesome experience.
Can you talk a little bit more about those two things as a combination, and maybe for the listeners, in a nutshell, explain what transpersonal psychology is, and then maybe how you got to combining those things and the synergy, I know it seems like you sort of put an emphasis on the transformational and empowering and healing and transpersonal properties of lucid dreams.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that comes together with your philosophy and how you work with people.
Yeah. So I'm currently in the third year of my master's program that is in transpersonal psychology. The title of the program is Consciousness, Spirituality, and Transpersonal Psychology. It's a master's of science. In general, transpersonal psychology, I really was drawn to it because it integrates the kind of mind, body, and spirit work with more traditional psychological frameworks. So the actual word transpersonal, I guess if you wanted to break it down, means going beyond looking at just yourself or the surface of yourself as one single individual. So it kind of transcends that idea and it looks at our human experience as a whole from a wider perspective. And transpersonal psychologists are really basically interested in humans reaching their highest human potential, having these kind of peak or mystical experiences, looking at spiritual emergence, altered states of consciousness, all these kinds of things. So for me, my interest in that stemmed from my experiences growing up. I was very depressed. I was actually admitted to a kind of psychiatric hospital. I was on medicine for psychosis. I was having a very difficult experience in my life, and all that I felt I was getting from, I guess you can call it like in quotes, Western perspective of what was going on for me was just medicate her. She's got some kind of illness or some kind of disease. There's something wrong with her. No one was looking at my subjective experience or what, my supposed illness was maybe stemming from or anything like that. I know, medicine is much better now, and obviously there are a lot of incredible therapists as well. I did do a lot of therapy, but I found that no one was really addressing these things, my experience as a whole, beyond just me as an individual or beyond, physical symptoms that I may have been showing. No one was looking at, I guess, what people would call like my spiritual experience or the core of my being or the core of my mind. And so that's what really drew me to transpersonal psychology, is looking at these altered states that we get in, or these, I guess, alternative perspectives that we can have of beings being a bit more than just, this is our one conscious state of our experience. As far as coaching in that area goes, I think it's incredible to use transpersonal techniques like lucid dreaming for coaching, because we are looking beyond just their surface level conscious experiences. So that provides a kind of broader perspective or spectrum for healing and doing that inner work, which I think is what a lot of people who suffer with depression or these kind of psychotic mental illnesses are really looking for. They're looking for doing that inner work on themselves. And transpersonal coaching can really help people not only just look from a broader perspective, but really get into those core aspects of why you're feeling a certain way or what is going on for you and the world around you.
And can be so empowering too, right? To do it that way. Like the medications are just kind of a Band-Aid on what's going on.
Totally.
And it's so common. So those conditions, depression and anxiety and all these other mental health conditions are so common in our culture right now. Yeah. So many people deal with them in isolation. And the lucid dreaming avenue, it can be so empowering to deal with those types of things, and actually you're working them out yourself and kind of figuring them out. And it's possible in a short period of time to deal with some very deeply ingrained things. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's what was so empowering for me with lucid dreaming, and realizing I had access to do that inner work on myself through that modality was, firstly, that I felt like I was actively improving on something. I was actively improving on myself. Whereas when I was on antidepressants, like you were saying, I just felt like it was a band-aid, and that if I ever stopped taking them, like, that was it. I couldn't get better. I don't think they even really helped me feel that much better at the time. And I think that's a really common thing in this day and age, is just people are put on meds and they feel like, well, now I just have to take meds for my whole life and go to a therapist or whatever. Whereas lucid dreaming is something that you have within yourself all the time. Everyone dreams every single day. And so if you want to utilize that dream space for your own empowerment or reaching your highest potential, integrating these things that you practice into your everyday waking life, how empowering is that for someone?
Yeah, and it's like an ancient knowledge in a way that, there's some newer scientific improvements. And I think for people that haven't done it before, it maybe sounds a little like woo-woo kind of stuff. But once you've done it, it's not. It's so close to like a real life sort of experience and a real memory, and something that if you're afraid of heights and one day you get the courage to jump off the high dive and a bunch of people clap and you come out of there like feeling amazing, and all of a sudden you could do that anytime you want. Like, that's something that could happen in real life, right?
Yeah.
But it's also the type of experience that you could have a dream of one night, and you're not even really getting wet in real life. And that fear could be gone the next day potentially, right?
Totally. It's really good for those kind of things, working on phobias or things you might have more fears about. And in the dream space, you're not bound by the regular laws of physics. And oftentimes, people say that those heightened lucid experiences are sometimes much stronger or much more powerful than they feel like they have an experience in their waking state. I would kind of describe it as similar to like when you have a psychedelic experience. When you take a psychedelic, you're in your waking life, but it's just different. It's like you've tuned into a new TV channel and you're kind of experiencing this new wave of life now. That experience and all the things you think about and all the things you do is considered real because you're really experiencing it. That's how I feel about the lucid dream state. People say, well, it's just a dream, so it didn't matter. But how is that different? I don't understand how you can pass something off as, well, it's just a dream. If you are still having that experience, to me, you're just enhancing your life with those lived experiences, especially if you're integrating them into your waking life.
Yeah, I think the Western world is starting to finally take these altered states of consciousness, which have been sort of relegated to this weird corner of, since the drug laws and all of the weird propaganda stuff. But that's all starting to change now that the doors for research have been reopened, and especially the way it can help with these very real PTSD sort of conditions and anxiety and depression, and, study with veterans and MDMA, and also the psilocybin, which recently got passed in your city. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And now we have these ways to study these different worlds. And I think really interestingly, they've done studies on, since you brought it up, the psychedelics, and I think specifically with psilocybin and MDMA, it activates very similar parts of the brain and deactivates very similar parts of the brain as happens in the dreaming world.
Yeah. And I've written quite a few papers on this for my master's. And I'm really, in particular, interested in bringing lucid dreaming into the medical field as almost like a post-drug treatment. There's a lot of people who are getting treatments now with ketamine for depression, and they've found that it's not necessarily the drug or the chemical changes itself that's making them feel better. It's actually that deeper, more transpersonal experience that they're just getting glimpses of that, and it's changing their whole perspective of their lives. As we know, as incredible as psychedelics are and for helping getting a glimpse of those things, for me, if those people had another avenue out, how about try lucid dreaming? This is something that's natural. It's with you every day. You don't have to pay to get it. It's within you. You can still get those empowered states. I mean, if you want, you can take hallucinogens in a lucid dream and trip, and it's not dangerous at all because you're in that dream space. the possibilities are so endless with it.
Isn't it strange how realistic it can be within the dream space?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you think dreams aren't weird enough? Try taking psychedelic medicines within the dreamscape.
Yeah.
And then put those two worlds together.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre how we can simulate that, or maybe it's not us simulating that. That's a whole other conversation. But the way that can happen, and you can wake up and be like, wow, just like the food thing you were saying, like, I just ate a whole feast. Wow, I just had a crazy psilocybin trip for 2 hours in a dream.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. It's amazing. And I think, again, it helps you in your waking life, because once you're integrating those things and you're kind of thinking, this is how I felt. Like, for example, I had a lucid dream a couple of weeks ago, and my friend gave me some ecstasy. And as soon as I took the ecstasy, I started tripping as if I was on ecstasy. I haven't taken it in years, but it was just euphoric immediately. Wow. And I got lucid because I was realizing that part of myself. I was like, wow, I'm really feeling the music, and I felt, my heart opening and that kind of rush of love as you do. And I thought, why can't I be in this state more of the time when I'm not on drugs? And then I was looking around at where I was, and that triggered my lucidity, because I was like, I don't know where I am. I'm in this random bar right now. So then I went on with my lucid dream task. But after that dream, I thought about that a lot. It makes you think, well, if I can simulate that open-heartedness and free flow of energy in my dream state, I can do that in my waking life too. And the more and more you do those things, not just with drugs, but in general, like if you're practicing a speech or something in the dream state, or you're practicing for a presentation and you're trying to build up that confidence, that kind of naturally transfers to your waking life, where you're like, yeah, I can do this stuff. I can do it in the dreamscape. I can do it in my waking life. And just the amount of confidence gained and eye-opening experiences that come from those times that you spend in your lucid dream state are incredible.
Wow. When you became lucid and remembered your dream task, did you still feel like you were tripping on ecstasy after that point?
No. That was quite funny, because I was like, well, like, I need to focus on my task right now. And so I think that faded out. My brain went into like, no, lucid dream, I need to do my task. But the incredible thing actually about that lucid dream is my task was about healing, and I did heal after it. So this is another one of those weird occasions where I can tell you the dream in brief if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So a couple of weeks ago, I was supposed to be conducting all these interviews for my research, and I lost my voice like several days before I was doing my first interview. And I was just like, great, gotta conduct interviews, like 12 interviews. I have no voice. This never happens to me. And I'd read a lot about people healing through dream work. I'd never actually had the chance to try it, as I'm pretty lucky in that sense. Like, I don't really have any bodily pains or different things like that. But yeah, went into the dream, had that kind of ecstasy moment, got lucid. And I was in this bar. So I went over to the barman, like across the other side of the room, and I told him my situation. I was like, hey, I have lost my voice. Do you have anything that can help me? And he brings out this bottle. He's kind of rummaging around, and he's like, here, try this. And I kind of drank what the drink was that he gave me. Pretty gross. It was basically all the ingredients that I would use to make like an omelet. It was just like eggs, green peppers, mushrooms, onions, like all that kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, maybe I should ask him to make me an omelet. And I was like, I'm getting off track. Get back to the point. So I just kind of drank this thing, and then continued with like a couple of other tasks that I wanted to do in that dream. When I woke up in the morning, my voice was back. And obviously I can't claim as any kind of scientific thing that was directly from my lucid dream. But But to me, it was, because I know the condition of my voice that night. I was like, what am I going to do with all these interviews and stuff? I drank this liquid that this character gave me in the dream. And I woke up and it was like nothing had ever happened.
Wow.
Which just shows how healing sleep is for us. Whether it was that lucid task or sleep itself, what a place of healing and restoration. And I was talking to Elliot Gish. I don't know if you know him, but he's also another lucid dream coach in Colorado. And he's doing research on pain and healing in lucid dreams. And he was saying that he's found it's that actual physical feeling that we do in a lucid dream. Like if you feel something physically, like I felt the liquid physically going down my throat, that has some connection to the healing part of the dream.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little break here. Got a public service announcement. Do you sometimes feel sad? Is your dog barking and just won't shut up? Are there times where you think to yourself, man, I just want a waffle? Well, friends, me too. Now, I don't know if lucid dreaming will help with all of these things, but you know what? Maybe 2 out of 3. And if you ask me, I'll take those odds any day. Is This a Dream? The Lucid Dreaming podcast you can count on always to make sense at least some of the time. Find us on the web at isthisdreampodcast.com or anywhere you find those quality podcasts. And we are back. Sometimes when I'm trying to talk to people about lucid dreaming, I get tangled up in my words because it's so crazy to me how many things lucid dreaming can be helpful with, and like how it almost is, like it sounds cliche to say something is like the holy grail of like anything.
Yeah.
Mental health, physical health, learning things, social health, just plain fantasy fun stuff. Anything you can think of, it can be not just a little helpful with, but probably really helpful with. And there's so little studies.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, so I can just talk to people more about this, because it seems so crazy to me that we don't know more about this. And it seems like some lost form of knowledge, you know, to get a little almost Graham Hancock fingerprints of the gods kind of ancient alien stuff. Because I know in ancient cultures, pretty much any mystical ancient culture you look at, from Sufism to any kind of shamanic cultures to the Australian Aborigines to, I mean, anywhere really you look, there was lucid dreaming. And of course, Tibetan Buddhist philosophy, it's one of the 6 paths to enlightenment.
Yeah.
They call it dream yoga, but it's basically a version of that. Doesn't it just seem crazy that this isn't more widely known or studied?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It blows my mind all the time that it's not, and the amount of people who don't know about it and don't know the amount of things that you can use it for. And then at the same time, like you were saying, this is something that's been used for like thousands and thousands of years and dates back to all these, you know, historic cultures. And I've read books about different remote islands where everyone on the island practices lucid dreaming, and it's a common thing that if someone has a profound dream or receives a message in a lucid dream, everyone will come together and listen to this as vital information that is being delivered to them. So there are cultures that really integrate it into their lives. I think one of the things that, you know, as you were saying, a lot of people in Western cultures maybe just pass it off as this spiritual thing that you have to like do loads of meditation to get into, and that kind of stuff turns people off, which is why like one of, you know, my goals is making this really accessible to by anyone. and finding the things that attract people to it. Telling people about things that it's been used for, that everyone knows. There are loads of movies written from lucid dreaming. There's been so many discoveries, like in chemistry or different things like that. I think it's about making those connections for different people and telling them the reasons why they should use it. A lot of the things that come up for me, surprisingly, are actually in that spiritual realm, like telling people about grieving and using it for that space. I think we, as Westerners, we don't really address death much in our lives. We try and avoid it really at all costs, talking about it or anything like that. And for me, something that was so useful was grieving when my cat suddenly died. This again was when I was much younger, but after my cat died, she had a seizure. I was very upset and I felt like I couldn't say goodbye. And so for a couple of weeks after that, I would just initiate a lucid dream and spend time like playing with my cat and loving my cat and hugging her and kind of trying to say goodbye. And while I recognized, that's not entirely her, the mental processing that I went through doing that and the closure I gained from that was just as powerful as it would have been in my real life. And I think that's something that people could use. Everyone universally has a tough time processing grief and saying goodbye to people. And knowing that you kind of have that avenue where you can say your last goodbyes or give a message to someone if maybe you didn't get a chance to. Doing things like that is really powerful for people and is in such a visceral way in the lucid space that, you just can't get that from traditional therapies, no matter how much you might talk about it. It's really that. It almost feels like waking life. So it's truly a deep experience.
It's almost like lucid dreaming is this missing link to just normal existence in a way. Dealing with these hard things, living a better life, being a better version of yourself, maybe just getting your yayas out in ways that you can't do in everyday life. There's just all these different avenues. Yeah, like you said, the basic thing of grieving somebody, which is so hard to do. And, you might have 3 busy weeks in a row where, if something like that happens, it's just such a shadow over your days every day, and especially if it's someone very important to you. But the ways that you'd be able to emotionally process that in dreamland can just completely transform that experience. Yeah,
it's that emotional processing, it's the energy, and it's the time too. We spend a third of our lives dreaming. So essentially, if you're conscious in that time, you're adding almost 30% extra life onto your life. You're living more. That's why people say they call the deep advanced lucid dream practice living lucidly, because you're really integrating that conscious awareness into both your dreams and your waking life. And in that way, you have more time, you have more energy, you have more space to do the things you want to do, whether that's being this heightened, empowered human being and solving problems and taking action and making business plans and having the time to do that in your dream space and integrating that into your waking life, or whether you're just using it for fun. Like, you might be someone who's super busy and you spend your whole life in an office working a 9-to-5 job, and you might just want to fly over a city at night or take yourself to a beach and relax. You might not be someone who has the money to do the things you want to do. So it's like, well, do what you want in that space. Like, if you want to use it to go on a shopping spree and wear all these fancy clothes and drive a fast car or do those things, then you can do that. And if you want to use it for these empowerment tools, like, you can do that too. You can honestly just do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost inconceivable, the possibilities. And it's like everything you could possibly want to do. Like we were talking earlier about taking psychedelics in your dreams, for example. What I thought was great was when I asked if the effect of the drug continued after you became lucid, and you were like, no, I remembered I had to do this thing and then could change that. if you're having an experience like that occasionally, you would like it to end.
Yeah.
And like, how great is that, kids, that you could take these things in your dreams and just decide when you're ready to do something else, you know,
Yeah.
which you can't do in everyday life. Or say you really need a vacation. Well, instead of spending thousands of dollars in all this planning and hoping that things work out the way you want them to, you know, the hotel might be not where you thought it was. Things could go wrong. Somebody might lose your bags, you know. Maybe not everything might go perfect, but when in one night you could have the most amazing vacation of your life, potentially, you know, if you will it to happen for no money, you could have the best vacation with the best sex and the best food and whatever it is that you want, that you feel like you need, that you're not getting in your overworked life or whatever's going on. You could have that in a night and really wake up feeling like that's fulfilled.
Yeah. I mean, totally. And you can use it for serious things. You can use it for fun. And again, like going back to talking about it with friends and why I got into coaching is because just so many of the answers to things people tell me, I feel like can be solved through lucid dreaming. Just people's small everyday complaints of like, oh, well, I don't have money to do this, or I wish I had this, or I wish I could go to this place. It's like, you can. And yes, like you might want to eventually do that with your physical money in the waking state too. But like in the meantime, why not do it in your dream space? If that's going to help you with like stress reduction or anxiety or business burnout, your body image, like whatever it is, why not utilize that if you can? I was speaking with one of my participants. So I do a survey. It's on my website as well. It's just open, collecting data on it constantly about the powers of lucid dreaming for transformations, healing, and overcoming depression. One of the participants I was working with was telling me about how she actually works like in a very creative field. She's an art therapist. And often in her lucid dreams, she'll see these designs or see the way a room is built, or maybe just like the wallpaper or different stuff like that, and take that and make these projects out of it and just go to work the next day and be like, guys, it's happened again, but I had this dream and this is what I saw and this is what we're doing. And everyone's just like, okay, cool.
Wow.
And she's literally, you know, building her business off it pretty much. You know, it is her creations, it's in her mind, it's in her dream space. But she was saying to me, it's that really weird space of like, she almost doesn't feel like she's coming up with it. Like she feels like she's receiving it. And a lot of people say that, you know, that they feel like they receive information or messages from, as you were saying, these kind of more conscious dream characters, or, you know, just things that help us solve problems in our lives or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's like opening up that door can just add this extra dimension to existence, because it seems like magic when you do it every time. If you bring anything back from the dream world, and yeah, like you said, you can just walk into an art gallery and see the most amazing art. Yeah. I can't draw worth a damn, so I wouldn't be able to bring any of that back. But sometimes as a musician, I brought some music back. Yeah. And it almost seems like cheating, you know, but then you do look at the stories and there's just all kinds of music and art and science, like you were saying, and math that's been brought back from the dream world, and a lot of things in this world come from there. And so when you look at it that way, it's almost like this natural element of existence that people have, that knowledge and practice has been kind of lost, and we're rediscovering it. And it feels important right now, the magnitude of things going on in the world that are just these massively complicated issues like climate change and resources running out, and the different geopolitical super complicated issues between countries, where something like this could be helpful, because you can get information the same way engineers and scientists have gotten very complicated equations and proofs back from that world. They can't really explain how they get them, but they do. Why couldn't we get very complicated solutions to complicated problems that we're facing. Of course, it's one thing to have the answer and another thing to actually implement it in the real world, but we can use all the help we can get right now, right? So
for sure. I totally agree. And I don't know, I have a suspicion that the more people that start lucid dreaming, like the more kind of connected we can get. Rupert Sheldrake, he kind of does work on Morphic Resonance, which is just like the idea of a collective memory in nature, and kind of talks about how there are certain studies that are being done now that show if a group of people do one thing first, then it's easier for another group of people to do it immediately after that. Almost like this collective consciousness idea.
Yeah, it's kind of like when the 100-meter gets broken below a new, like, you know, or the 4-minute mile situation where nobody thinks it's possible, and then somebody does it, and then all of a sudden each year, incrementally, people are breaking it more and more. Yeah,
I feel like it's something about the lucid space that kind of clicks into that. And the more we get lucid and we get mindful and we raise our awareness and we are gaining confidence and producing these creative things and working on our inner selves and also beyond ourselves, that stuff all just sounds good to me. Like, if people start doing that more, I don't think anything bad can come of that.
Well, you know, it's like our culture is so into this whole phenomenon with the Marvel movies and the Avengers, and, you know, which is great. I love those movies, and I think they're great to watch for lucid dreaming practice reasons. Yeah. But, you know, it's like, hey, we can really do that kind of stuff. Yeah. You know? Yeah. We like these myths and these stories that are like archetypes. And I think those movies are great archetypes and they do great jobs. But I think lucid dreamers are like, hey, no, you can really do those things. And in a way, we could really, it feels like maybe we could even save the world like the Avengers. Yeah. You know? Of course, we're using big words and big statements, but the feeling is once you start learning that stuff, and if other people learn this stuff, and my God, what if like heads of state learned how to do this kind of stuff? You know, I think it's similar when you hear people talking about like the psychedelic things. Like there was an interview with Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan I was listening to last week where Hancock was saying that, I forget if he said it or someone else said it, but that anybody who's running for president should have to go through 12 ayahuasca ceremonies beforehand, and the public should be able to watch those, you know.
It's kind of a Black Mirror.
Yeah, it's like a Black Mirror situation, which honestly, I would fully support that idea. But I think lucid dreaming is sort of a similar, you know, maybe less extreme thing, but it's like, my God, if people with good intentions knew how to do this, you know, and could go to the dream space for the kind of answers and deal with the sort of problems on the level that they're dealing with, you know, and the people helping them could, you know, you start to think of these scenarios. And of course, these things take time and maybe even generations to have this knowledge work through. But
well, I mean, as you were saying, like from the results that they're doing with people who have PTSD, depression, these kind of mental illnesses, is essentially you're just rewiring your brain. You're rewiring your brain to write over those negative thought patterns and to just enter into that access of these superhuman states. One of the courses that I offer is Transformations and Empowerments, and one of the key specialties of that is superhuman states. And it is taking yourself to those places. Like, what can you do to save people in a crazy situation? Or like, what's your contribution to the world? How do you want to contribute, and how can you start working on that? And there's so many people who have these amazing like precognitive dreams where there's some kind of accident or something like a plane crash, and in their lucid dreams they get lucid when there's this kind of alert, high tension situation going on, and they actually change the outcome of a dream. And that's exactly what people who have PTSD are doing. They're like revisiting these traumas and just changing the outcome or changing the way they think about it, the way they feel about it, and literally overcoming their traumatic experiences, or at least receiving closure. And that just helps you function in the world.
Do you feel like you have a superpower?
Definitely. I mean, I think being lucid in itself is a superpower to me. It's just magic. It's real life magic. Being able to construct your environment, change physics, fly, change body, be a different gender, be a different animal. That's magic to me. That's superhuman living.
Yeah, it's like the unlimited wishes wish, with the genie bottle. It's the superpower that gives you access to any superpower.
Yeah, and it just makes me think about all these issues going on in the world that you were saying, one of the recent kind of political issues is about people being transgender and whether that's okay and how people feel about it and all these different things. And I was just thinking about it, and I was like, the amount of times that in my dream I've been a different gender or a different animal. Like, what about if there was a treatment for these people who are experiencing these feelings and they can try out being a boy or a girl in their lucid dream and like see how they feel in that body? It's like, that's not necessarily going to be a solution, but it's an idea. And then to me, I'm like, why is this not happening? Like, why don't these people have access to this? I mean, They do, but they're not utilizing it.
I haven't experienced those things myself, but I would wonder, for people who feel like maybe surgery is the only option, but they're not sure or whatever, what if those people could just learn lucid dreaming and every night be whatever they feel like? Maybe they'd still want the surgery, and that's fine, but maybe not. Maybe you don't have to go through all that because you can, every day, you have the option to have any experience you want. And if that's one of them, then maybe you can fulfill those things without having to do all this stuff, and then you might feel different in everyday reality.
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to that inner work and being able to so deeply and so viscerally experience those things and running through these difficult things like conversations about death or closure or even just like difficult relationship stuff. Like the amount of times that I've wanted to just have a difficult conversation with a friend or with my partner or my parents and things like that, and just running through it in the dream space, because it's that different state of consciousness. So I often run through something as myself, and then I actually will go into the body of the other person and see how it feels from that perspective, like looking at me, saying it, or, hearing those words. And you can really embody that in the dream space. Saying it out loud almost sounds like crazy, but it just works that way.
It sounds like the coolest thing ever. To be honest, you're like the movie director of your own movie, but this is like real life situations. That you can have an experience like that, to have a hard conversation and then go repeat it where you're listening to yourself say what you said, but as another person with their thoughts and feelings. That's so invaluable to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, it's just priceless. And
you can't put a value on that.
No. And yet it's accessible to everyone. And, that's my mission, I guess, is like, I healed so much through lucid dream work and I transformed my life. That's why the front page of my website is Transform Your Life with Lucid Dream Coaching, because that's literally what I did. And that's what any person who wants to can do if they want to. And I want to spread that. I want anyone who wants to do that to be able to do it.
We're going to take a break. It is time for a segment. It's segment time. The name of this podcast, Is This a Dream?, is what's known as a reality check. I playfully chose this title on one hand, so interacting with this show in any way whatsoever could in itself be a reality check that might aid in your quest to become lucid. Let's dive a little deeper into this concept. In 1959, German psychologist Paul Thoele developed a strategy for becoming lucid in dreams that could be practiced while awake. 10 times each day for a period of 1 month, he would seriously ask himself, "Am I dreaming?" This later became known as the critical reflection technique or critical state testing, which now is often just shortened to state checks or reality checks. A reality check is what's known as a lucid dream induction technique. A lucid dream induction technique is, you guessed it, something that aids in inducing lucid dreams. We are now living in the golden age of lucid dreaming, where there are a plethora of well-researched, tried-and-true lucid dreaming induction techniques from both the East and the West. Methods from the old world worked out by ascetic monks on mountaintops of solitude, alongside recently pioneered approaches engineered through trial and error in university sleep laboratories by graduate students. It's a good time to be a lucid dreamer. The idea of periodic reality checks is, if you habitually question your reality often enough during the day, you will eventually repeat this habit in your dreams. As you've probably noticed, dreams have a way of mirroring the day's events, which is known as day residue. But also, no matter how bizarre things get, the consciousness and person in your dreams is still a version of you. So your reactions, both emotional and mental, to whatever might be happening are similar to what they would be if you were awake. Hence, if you get in the habit of doing state checks when weird or dreamy things happen in daily life, you will eventually start doing them when these oddities occur in dreamland as well. It worked for Tholi and has for many others. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to meet an experienced lucid dreamer who doesn't do reality checks here and there. It just kind of comes with the territory. And it almost goes without saying, Onironauts absolutely need a way to determine in any given moment whether or not we are dreaming. And the vast majority of lucid dreams start when this realization occurs, which often is confirmed with a reality check or two. Now, you can do reality checks anytime, but there are ways of being more strategic about when and where to do them that will give you more return on your dusty dinosaur dollar. Wait, what? Did he just say dusty dinosaur dollar? Is he talking to himself in the third person now too? This is unusual. Wait a minute. Could this be a dream? Let's see. Think back to the last couple hours. Yeah, okay, there was meditation, shower, coffee, staring at the tree while drinking coffee, squirrel dropping a nut on my head. Bonk. Me wondering if that was on purpose. Are squirrels in fact inherently hostile and irreverent towards humans? Or maybe they were just going about their business. Or maybe both? Well, anyways, it all adds up. Let's take a look at the hands. 10 fingers, stable looking. Okay, one last thing. I'm going to look at a digital clock here. 11:12. Darn. Just missed the Crystal Vortex Ascension portal. Okay, don't get sidetracked. Looking away, looking back at the clock now, still reads 11:12. All right, looks like we are in waking physical reality. That was a reality check. As you can see, I used a combination of a few different checks. I thought back on the last couple hours, made sure I could put it in order, which can be very difficult or impossible if you are dreaming. I looked at my hands, which is a classic go-to for many dreamers. If it is a dream, your hands will often look distorted, fluctuating, the number of fingers may be wrong, they might be unusually hairy, or all kinds of other weird stuff like that. I looked at a clock, looked away, looked back again, and it was the same. Often in a dream, text, if available, will change when you look away and look back again. Some people only need one reality check, whereas others need a few for contingency. Everyone's different. Here are a few other popular options. Jump or hop into the air. If it is a dream, you may go much higher than usual, float for a moment, bounce like a beach ball, or some other result where gravity is not acting normally. Try pinching your nose and blowing air out. If you are dreaming, the air may flow right through your fingers. Try sticking a finger of one hand through the palm of the other. In a dream, it may go right through. It takes a little experimentation, finding what works for each of us. Some dreamers like to change it up here and there to keep things fresh. Be playful, have fun with it, and when you're listening to the show, let it be a little reminder for you to double check. Is this a dream? And we are back. Do you have a system for dream journaling? And if yes, can you take us through just a little bit how you transcribe, maybe make notes, any systems for long-term organization or archiving, how you find dreams again if you need to?
Yeah. I do a series of things, but I recommend just using any one of them to start off. But the first thing I do is I wake up and I write my dream almost immediately. I like to lay still in bed for a couple of minutes and recall everything. And actually, I find that in my dreams a lot towards the end of me doing something, I start actually typing out my dream in my dream whilst I'm lucid. Mm-hmm. But yeah, after I'm awake, I've recalled everything in my mind. Like staying still really helps to kind of process that and keep track of the dream, or like keep all the details. I'll just write it out into the notes page on my phone. And I do that as the first thing because I think writing, like the physical act of writing in a journal, I found has been really difficult. My writing's really messy. It's really hard to like fumble for a pen and a paper and get it all down, especially when your dreams get longer and you're taking up crazy amount of space and it's quite slow writing. Whereas on my phone, it's basically a part of us now. So I can kind of like type with my eyes closed or like dim the screen and just get it down there. Once I do that, I then copy and paste it into another app that's called Wake, I believe. And Wake, you can kind of, firstly, you can record whether it's like lucid, recurring, nightmare, regular dream. So that's cool. And you can set your dreams to private or public. And you can hashtag the bottom of your dream, essentially. So like if I had a dream about water or something, that might have been one of my hashtags. And then if I wanted to quickly look that up, you can just type that into the app and the dream will come up. And it also shares with other dreamers. So you can see if like someone else has had a really similar dream to you or those kinds of things.
Interesting.
And then I do a physical journal, like a couple of weeks after. I physically write out my dreams again. And at that time, I work on like highlighting who the characters were in the dream, the environment of the dream, my emotions. And those three things usually work as triggers for me. If there's people constantly coming up in my dreams who are like people I haven't seen in 10 years or whatever, and I'm highlighting those people, then I kind of make that mental note, like the next time this person's in my dream, I'm going to get lucid. And that trigger, like boom, immediately. Or if there's really common places that I find myself getting lucid, then those become a trigger. Again, with emotions, like a lot of people find that their emotions can be really different in dreams. Like they might be a really calm person in real life, but in their dream space, they're suddenly like crazy angry. That's a lucidity trigger. It's like the next time you're in a really high stress or angry situation, maybe you're in a dream.
Wow. So you have 3 levels of dream journals. That's really cool.
Yeah, maybe a bit extreme. I think if you're someone just starting out, you know, find what works for you. Some people prefer like a voice recorder. I think my husband would be really annoyed by that. But yeah, so especially if you're around other people or different things, then you've got to kind of find the right method for you. But for me, the combination of those 3 things constantly allows me to get spontaneously lucid and really keep track of those lucid dream triggers.
Now, when you get to the 3rd level of the handwritten dream journal, which it seems like is kind of the deepest level, of journaling, are you cherry picking at that point dreams, or are you writing every last thing that was in your notes pad?
Yeah, it's a really interesting process because when I'm doing that, I'm recalling the dream. And whereas on that morning, I may have been kind of quickly trying to write stuff down. When I recall it again at a slightly later date, I can kind of revisit those memories. So sometimes I'll like add in something in my written journal that I didn't initially write in my digital notes app, because I'll kind of revisit that space and then maybe like notice a detail that I didn't write down or things like that. So I think that, yeah, is the deepest level. It gets the most detail from me. Everything goes in, reflections of how I felt, occasionally like things that may have happened, like I dreamt it and then that actually ended up happening in real life, or those kinds of things.
So you actually end up adding things, but you at least end up rewriting everything that was in your notes app, but you don't go through it and be like, oh, this one was insignificant, I'm going to skip that one. You do everything and then some, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't see any of my dreams as insignificant because I think I'm having them all for some kind of reason. I think I see it just as I see my everyday life. You know, sometimes you have a boring day. You go to work and nothing really happens or whatever it is, but I don't end that day being like, well, that was a really insignificant day of my life. I don't want to remember anything about it. I kind of view it that way, like even if I have a dream that's a sentence or just a really plain Jane, like, oh, I was just writing my paper or something. That's still meaningful because that to me is me processing something. And I don't know what that might link up to the next day. But if anything, it's just helping me, you know, record more and more of my dreams, which helps build your memory capacity for your dreams. So to me, I'm all in.
What's your ideal nighttime routine leading up to sleep that helps with your dreaming practice?
Ideally, I always try to give a space where the phone goes down, read something. I also like to journal occasionally, especially if I have a task I want to do in my lucid dream. I'll maybe do some writing about that. I wish I did more meditation. I think that's something that's really a powerful evening practice. I think at this point I end up meditating more in my dream space than in my waking space, but I really need to balance that out. But I think, yeah, all those kind of things are a really good nighttime practice.
What's your preferred method of lucid dream induction, and how long did it take you to become proficient at it?
The one that's most effective for me is the one that everyone seems to hate the most, and that's the wake back to bed practice, where, you know, you get your 4 or 5 hours of sleep or whatever it is, then wake up at some crazy time in the morning, like 5 or 4 a.m., do meditation, read something, or like practice your dream intention. And then usually at that point, for most people, if you go to sleep, then you're going into your deep REM stage. So I'd say like 99% of the time, if I do that, I'll get lucid as an induction technique.
What's your target amount of time to stay up for? 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 2 hours?
Yeah, I know a lot of people say that you should spend at least an hour. For me, I do 15 minutes, and that's just my personal preference that I found works with me. If I stay up for like an hour, I'm one of those people who just like, I start doing my day by that point, and then I'm just up from like 4 a.m. I think my brain gets too active. I'm always really excited about things. So if I'm like, start reading a book or something, and then I end up just waking up, and it's really hard to get back to sleep. So for me, I like to just stay in that kind of deep sleep state where I've just woken up. I'll kind of like wrap a blanket around me if it's too cold, and like do a meditation, say my mantra, or just like go over my lucid dream intentions, and try not to move too much. Just keep things like dark, you know, still really in that dreamy state until I can just like fall back in. And yeah, I'd say like 15 minutes.
And you mentioned you use a mantra. Is that like a personal kind of mantra, or is that sort of a standard dreamers falling back to sleep mantra?
Bit of both. Recently, I've been practicing not changing my lucid dream space. So like just getting lucid in the dream space and then just exploring that space without changing stuff. So if I'm doing that, my recent thing has just been super simple mantra. Like I try and choose the environment that I was just dreaming about. So like for my lucid dream yesterday, when I woke up at 5, I realized I was having this dream that I was in this playground. So then I just kind of did a quick 15-minute meditation sit and just was repeating like, the next time I'm in a playground, I'm going to be lucid. The next time I'm in a playground, I'm going to be lucid. And lay back down and literally went back into that dream, almost was in that playground, and I was lucid immediately.
So that's like the LeBerge mild technique, right? Pneumatically induced lucid dreams.
Yeah.
Is that kind of your main thing as opposed to, say, the wake-induced lucid dream, aka wild, or dream-induced lucid dream is kind of a mnemonic-induced lucid dream situation?
Yeah, I would say, again, like a lot of my lucid dreams are spontaneous, and they are in the dialed category, like the dream-induced lucid dream, where I'm just in the dream and I get lucid. But if I'm really like particular about just feeling it and wanting to do a lucid dream or wanting to do a task or something, then I use maybe that mnemonic practice or the wake back to bed techniques.
Do you have a daytime dreaming practice that partners with the nighttime parts? For example, periodic reality checks, any kind of perspective memory exercises or general mindset? See, it sounds like you're pretty experienced, so a lot of this has become intuitive for you over the years. But are there things that you still do during the day?
I need to talk to more experienced lucid dreamers about this, because I'd be really interested to see if this is the case for other people. But I feel like at the moment, I'm kind of battling my brain. Like if I do reality checks in my dreams now, a lot of the standard ones don't work for me. Like the light switch stuff, I can turn lights off and on. I can flip my hands and they'll be normal. I can like read quite a lot of passages and different things. One that doesn't seem to work or I can regularly do is the time one. So if I have a watch or a clock in my dream, that often triggers it. But I almost feel like my brain is trying to catch up on me doing these different reality checks. And the more I do it in the day, the more that in the dream can kind of replicate it. So my hands will stay as normal hands, or I can't necessarily like pull my finger or stuff like that. So I try and keep several of them on the go, and I try and like change them regularly or update them so that my brain isn't tricking itself. But I think the main thing that I do at the moment is just awareness practice. Like you were saying, thinking about where am I, who am I talking with, what am I doing right now? Just returning to the present moment and being like, what have I just been doing? And that kind of mental awareness practice.
And you'll do that during the day?
Yeah.
Just at random points?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. You know, I've been reading a little bit about the Tibetan Buddhist viewpoint on lucid dreaming and dream yoga. And what they say is that as your practice advances and evolves, the dream world becomes more like the waking world, and the waking world becomes more like the dream world. And it's almost like they meet in the middle. The waking world becomes more fluid, and you start to see the sort of gaps and holes in it that your brain glosses over, and the dreaming world becomes more normal. And so it almost sounds to me like what you're describing is probably a good thing. It shows that your practice is at a very high level.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting the way that those two worlds start blending together. I don't know, it's like our mind is so creative in that way. Our mind just will integrate those things. And I've noticed more and more the way those worlds are blending is like if I have a really basic problem in my waking life, or if I'm stressed or whatever, that comes up immediately in my dream space. And my dream is like, deal with it. Stop putting it off, you know? And then when I'm in my waking space and a problem comes up, I'm like, how would I deal with this in a lucid dream? And it's that integration of the two that is so empowering and transpersonal, and that I get the most out of that practice.
Yeah, it's almost like a partnership of these two complementary worlds that are helping each other. It seems so natural, like this is the way these things are supposed to work.
Yeah, and I think that mindfulness practice is also just a really beautiful thing that I've started integrating in my life. Just thinking about every day, like, what have I done with my day, or what are the goals for my day, or what would make me feel satisfied at the end of the day, or what am I working on, who are the people I'm spending my time with, what is my environment. Those things, they seem so, small, but it really impacts my emotions and how I feel and my levels of happiness and just that everyday feeling of satisfaction, really.
Okay, this is sort of my reconfigured Tim Ferriss question for lucid dreams. Name one purchase under $100 or habit that notably improved your dreaming practice. This can include things for better quality sleep, like curtains, books, apps, supplements, sleep masks, noise machines, or even habits such as consistent bedtime or limiting your device use or those types of things.
I think the organization of my room, kind of getting like all Jordan Peterson on you right now, but like keeping my space as my bedroom clean and as like a sleeping space only has benefited my life so much. I don't know where I kind of read about that, but just like only utilizing my bed as a sleeping space and keeping it super clean and dark and at the right temperature. In the past, I used to do like all kinds of things on my bed, like lay down and watch movies on my laptop or study on there, or just like talking with friends and different things like that. But I read that keeping that as just your sleep space and as that sacred space to do dream work transfers into your mind. Oh, we're in bed, it's time for bed. Your mind's like, okay, yes, sleep. I think that was a really powerful tool for me.
Yeah, I think if Jordan Peterson was a sleep scientist, he would have said, get your bedroom in order before you criticize bedrooms of others.
Exactly.
What advice would you give to someone who's new to lucid dreaming and has either not yet had their first lucid dream or is struggling with, say, stability and consistency issues?
I mean, obviously, I'm a lucid dream coach. So for me, I would say, get yourself a lucid dream coach. Get yourself someone who you can talk to this about all day, every day, who you can make practices with, who you can set goals with, and get it like into your life. The idea of coaching with lucid dreaming is really interesting because you've got that pressure to keep it as an active thing. You've got someone checking up on you and having expectations for you, and you're setting goals for yourself. And there's that background mentality of like, oh, I need to do this, or I have to be integrating these things to be benefiting myself. Yeah, just getting involved with it as much as you can, whether that's through coaching or connecting with other lucid dreamers, reading about it, maybe blogging about it. There's so many different meetups now in different groups, and the internet has opened a whole world for connections with people. And I hope that it's ever expanding. But I would say, find yourself someone who you can work on this with. And even if that's just a friend who doesn't mind hearing you go on about your lucid dreams every day or your dream patterns, I think that's a really helpful thing to do.
Yeah, because it's kind of a solitary practice. I think that's probably a roadblock a lot of people run into, because on one hand, still not very many people know much about lucid dreaming. So it's easy to try and have a couple conversations and just get, blank stares. But the idea of coming out of the isolation and be that working with a coach like yourself, or just talking to friends who like to talk about it, or finding online communities that like to talk about it. So to bring yourself back into a world with other people.
Yeah. And I think that goes for anything, like if you're interested in tennis, You seek people out. You seek out other people who are interested in it. You get a tennis coach. You bring it into your life. Yeah, coaching is awesome for that. Obviously I'm biased because I'm a lucid dream coach, but being able to have that access to someone, like you want to email anytime, text anytime, that you've got that person who's like excited for you and you're like making plans together, that's super powerful.
What do you see currently on the horizon for lucid dream studies and science, being a scientist yourself? And what do you think perhaps, or maybe hope, the field will look like 100 years from now?
Yeah. On the near horizons, I see things, as I was mentioning earlier, like developments for lucid dreaming in the mental health field. I think that will be the new thing that can come about in near future times. I think that's what a lot of people who I know in the field are like working on for PhDs. I've seen a lot of people working on it even at bachelor level now, which is super cool. And obviously I'm doing my research, and the more research I do, the more questions I have. So I think there's going to be this outbreak of new research. And now we have the technologies like fMRI, and we can see what's going on in people's brains when they're lucid dreaming.
What does that stand for? fMRI?
Functional magnetic resonance imaging.
So it's like an enhanced version of an MRI. Why can that help us with lucid dream sort of stuff more than the previous version?
I think it's just better visually for measuring brain activity.
Okay.
And it has some connection with like measuring blood flow. So if you were in a waking state and they told you to do something like clench your fist or whatever, they would look at what parts of the brain light up when you do that. And then they could test that like in the dream space, give you a task like, okay, when you get lucid, do this action, and they could see what's going on. So that's another really cool thing that I'm expecting for the future is I think there's some Japanese scientists who are currently trying to map dreams using these kind of technologies and predicting that in the future we'll maybe even be able to have like recordings of people's dreams or be able to work out from the brain imaging what they are looking at.
Yeah, I saw an article about that recently.
That's crazy.
It seems like the technology's in its infancy. The title, it was something like, Japanese scientists figure out how to read your dreams. But it seemed like an interesting first step in the process.
Yeah, I think that's probably where things are going to be trying to head. And I don't know, that to me is just so cool.
And then, because it's Japan, they'd come up with some like cute little creature with big eyes that reads your dreams back to you.
Exactly. What more can we ask for?
Leave it to the Japanese to make it cute, interesting, and cool. But I'm sure it would work very well.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, learn more about you online, interact with you, hit you up about your coaching service?
So my website is my name, keeping it super easy, which is Lana Sackwild. So it's LANASAKWILD.com. On there, I have like a little message box where you can just contact me directly through my website, or you can contact me via email. And obviously my social media, so my Facebook is Get Lucid with Lana. My Instagram is my name again, Lana Sackwild. And I made some courses for people I got from the work I did, the research I did on lucid dreaming, and I kind of broke down the main things people are using lucid dreams for into three main categories, which is physical, mental, and emotional health or healing, transformations and empowerment, spiritual and transpersonal. So if you go onto my website, you can look at the available courses and maybe see different things that resonate with you. Like in the healing part is a lot to do with maybe people struggling with depression, relationships, business burnout, dieting, body image, identities, or guilt and fears. Transformations and empowerment, I recommend for people who are looking for like building confidence, goal setting, productivity management, motivation, those superhuman states, finding your freedom, having fun with your life. And spiritual and transpersonal, I made for people more interested in getting into like those meditative states or having spiritual awakenings, shadow integration, out-of-body experiences, contacting deceased people or your ancestors, psychedelic journeys, like connecting with nature and that kind of stuff. And then I made 2 courses. One, Get Lucid 101, which is your basic, like for people who maybe are new to lucid dreaming. So I would work with them on developing those reality checks, dream journal techniques for them, wake-induced lucid dreams, dream-induced lucid dreams, playing with your environments, playing with characters, exploring your dream emotions. And then I also made Get Advanced 101. So that's for advanced lucid dreamers who want to take their practice further, whether that's something like increasing the time you spend lucid or playing further with engagement of your dream environments, time travel, working with those conscious entities, living lucidly. And then also for people who want to become a lucid dream coach, because I'm all about spreading this message and getting more and more people involved in this practice.
And these would also make an amazing gift for someone as well.
Yeah. It's just a great thing to share with people and spread the joy of lucid dreaming. And I also want to mention that as much as I'm making this my business and my profession, my goal is just to make this available to anyone and everyone who needs it. So if you're someone who's like struggling financially and you don't want to sign up to coaching because of a financial position, please just let me know and we can make an arrangement, because I really want this to be accessible to everyone.
Very cool. She has wild in her name, people. WILD. It stands for Wake-Induced Lucid Dream. So I think it's pretty legit. Thanks so much, Lana, for doing this. This has been a lot of fun. I hope we can continue this conversation again sometime in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I really enjoyed it. But maybe we can do like another session in the future where it's me asking you as a lucid dreamer about your experiences.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Good luck with finishing up your studies. And I think when this podcast comes out, you'll probably be finished. So congratulations, since time is sort of circular and onion-like, as we know. It's already happened.
Thank you.
I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Coming up.
The moment you recognize, if you haven't already, that you can be in a dream and then realize you're dreaming and know that that physical body's in bed.
With lucid dreaming author and coach, Craig Webb.
That's going to be a pretty serious identity shift and like a super wow moment.
Next time on Is This a Dream? Thank you for listening to Is This a Dream? A lucid dreaming podcast. Each episode is written, produced, sound designed, edited, and mixed by me, Adam Cotton. All the music you hear is also written and performed by me. Each episode has a companion blog post with notes and links up at isthisadreampodcast.com. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a review on whatever app you're using. Your ratings and reviews work wonders to help the people who are surfing around find it. Also, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, dreamers, I wish you all the best in your nightly journeys. Question reality, and don't forget to enjoy the ride.